Every week's kind of slightly different. Thank you for dealing with that. But I'm just interested in a theme for today. And that was something that someone asked me, a couple of people actually asked me first time we did this. Just questions about where do you get information? Let's get going.
How are you? Hanging in there. It's been a long week, but to me it's interesting that even though I've been quarantined, I still haven't done everything on my to-do list. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff I said I was going to do.
What are you doing?
My regular job that I had was manager at a bookstore at a university, and the company that runs it furloughed everybody, which I kind of knew it was coming, so it was okay. My side hustle is I do freelance, like what they call content creation, or like copywriting, technical writing, copy editing.
Sure.
So I do a lot of stuff for magazines, but I ended up getting a technical writing project right at the beginning for a dental company, which was great, and I really enjoy it, but I had to tell the guy, don't send me any more pictures. I don't need to see this. And then I took a couple online classes. Well, I'm taking the Yale Happiness course, and it's really incredible. It covers everything from like mindfulness to health, how to take mental breaks and meditation and stuff. It's amazing.
You remember what the first thing, when you first tuned into the Yale course, how the teacher introduced themselves?
This isn't going to be sitting on a therapy couch. It's just anything I can do for mindfulness and helpfulness and mental therapy during this time.
Sure.
But it's touched on a lot of like psychology and other stuff as well.
And do you remember what she said? Do you remember what she said the course would be in a nutshell?
We are going to discuss what people's ideas of happiness are, what they really are. This is when you say happiness, what everyone thinks, but this is what it really means. Like some people might say happiness is having a Rolls Royce, but actually happiness is, finding your own Rolls Royce, whatever that is, whether it's it could be a really good curry, it could be, a book, it could be, and it's all about finding a place where you're happy. And it's really interesting because it sort of focuses materialism and wealth and different things like that as well into these digestible things.
Did your anticipation of the idea of happiness align with what you began to learn?
For the most part, it's been a lot of reinforcement of different things in the class. Like, what is the idea of a perfect house, perfect job, find something that makes you gratified. Really, it's a great class for teaching you how to pause, slow down, and look around and chill. Until this all happened, American culture was always very much go, 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 use. And a lot of people didn't stop and really assess everything around them, and all done by videos. But she's still able to interface with people in the same way.
That's great.
As she does her classroom.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm guessing you're in the States. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in St. Louis.
And how is the kind of general morale?
Yeah, it's interesting. I took a walk yesterday just because I'm trying to get out every day. And yesterday was the first day that businesses were reopened. But we're notorious for being the state where the governor is going to let us have concerts again. Generally, people are sort of like being very tempered with their responses. And a lot of the stores are kind of coming back gradually.
Yeah.
So there's sort of like a cautious sense of, I'm kind of in the majority of like people that are like, okay, let's just wait this out because they keep saying a spike is coming. A lot of people are sort of being very measured with their responses. Now, St. Louis County, the guy who is our county executive, who's kind of like our version of the mayor, is an actual medical doctor. So when he gives his briefings, so it's a little more convincing and a little more fact-based.
Yeah.
So that is great. There are still a lot of groups of large people out.
It's very hard to blame people who think, this virus is no big deal because a lot of people, as long as we look after the people who are most vulnerable, the people with some form of morbidity, and pretty much the rest of the population can handle it. A lot of us are even asymptomatic. Why should we close down and risk losing our work and all these businesses go out of business? Basically, the whole country grinds to a halt. And this is pretty echoed for every country. So I understand why people pushing the buttons that they're pushing must be at some point a need to get back to work. And I think it's got something to do with the fact that this particular virus, it comes around, it hangs out with you, you walk out of the room smiling, and then someone somewhere else you just bumped into and said hi to for 5 minutes suddenly gets really ill, but you can't remember, you don't know how it happened. So it's a really subtle, sophisticated virus, and it confounds all our scientists because they just don't know what's going on. They don't know how it works. Do you think you've become happier regardless of the Yale exercise, just a little time away from everything?
I think with the Yale stuff, it reaffirmed a lot of things I already thought. It also has taught me some new things, some new techniques and new ideas. When I broke my foot like 5 years ago, and I had surgery and I was off of it for I think 11 weeks. I just looked at it from the mindset of like, oh, this is like when I broke my foot and I couldn't go out and do anything fun because I had a broken foot.
Yeah.
So I just went into it with this mindset. But the bonus is my wife works from home. That's an extra plus. So as long as I sort of keep that mindset, I'm kind of okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very social. I keep waiting for the thing to hit me. I have a radio show that I do every week, but I can record that here, which has been great.
That is great.
We've got groceries delivered. So we're sort of just not doing as much physical going out as possible. Yeah. We went we'll take the car out once in a while, get a drive, take walks to get air. But I'm not in a hurry to go to a restaurant or get on a plane. I can't imagine like going to like the airport.
For the benefit, maybe that's some other folk in Missouri. What is your most reliable source of news? Where would you go looking for, if you're hearing a billion different stories every day and they all contradict each other? Where are you going to go? I have bookmarked the CDC and World Health Organization. Generally, I'll use like the BBC or CNN for like mainstream media. I'm not sure how it happened, but I started getting the Washington Post and New York Times little headline updates. Okay. So every day it gives you a little summary. And I get that, but I've learned not to do anything about looking at the news late at night because then I don't sleep. Well, that's really good. I mean, the BBC's on my list. I mean, of ones I would recommend to people because it really, I just don't see bias. I mean, you have to try and avoid opinion articles all the time because opinion is opinion, and that is by definition biased. News bits, if you want to know what's going on everywhere in the world, and especially in America, then it's a good one to read, I think. That's just me trial and error. I've kind of been researching it the last few weeks because I anticipate we're going to have this discussion, and I'm just lost. Everybody's contradicting each other. I was going to say, the one nice thing I do like about the BBC is that it's an international perspective. One of the great things about it is you can sort of get a perspective on this from other people. And learning, like, you might be frustrated as all hell about being on lockdown, but then, like we talked about last week, you've got people in Italy on balconies singing. You get these uplifting stories. I feel better knowing that this is a world problem that the world is going to try to come together and fix rather than a nation state issue. There's something poetic and beautiful in that. It sort of restores your faith in humanity. I agree. And I would like to thank you. I'd like to say that one cool thing about what's happening right now, we all have at least one thing in common with everybody in the world. There's one word we all know. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Hi, it's so incredible to meet you. I never really thought that I would have the opportunity to do this, and this is so great. It seems like a really nice community overall. So
it's a really lovely community. If this is your first time here, it's another home.
Yeah, this is my third time here, actually.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been here for the last two sessions of this, and it's just been such an incredible experience hearing everyone.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. College has been taking up most of my quarantine time, but I'm actually graduating this week. So.
Oh my goodness, congratulations. Oh, you know what? The fact that this has happened during this graduation, you will look back on it with all your colleagues who have graduated in 2020, in the class of 2020, and you will have something special together. And what degree did you just win?
I studied psychology, so I'm hoping to become a child and adolescent therapist. Wow. So I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm hoping to eventually pursue a PhD, but I want to get some research experience first. The job market is going to be so saturated after this because all the research places are doing hiring freezes right now.
What state are you in?
I'm in Maryland.
Great. I think I've explained in one of the first meetings I had, my wife is a lawyer, and it's kind of interesting world that she lives in because it's kind of hermetically sealed bubble. It's not like criminal justice where it's very adversarial. There are people in that world who, sociologists especially, because I know at least your foundation year in psychology would have been sociology, broad. If you find you've got no luck at all, I would turn up to the courthouse and say, can I talk to some sociology? Can someone put me in touch? So make your own work, because I know they do really cutting edge stuff. I'm curious to know whether or not you'll deal particularly in child psychology, you think?
Yeah, child and I think adolescent as well.
Have you made any friends that you think you're going to cherish for a very long time in your time at college?
Yeah, I've made a few. There are definitely some people that I'm hoping to keep in touch with over time. And then a lot of people not from my college environment that I know from various environments that I joined as a result of being college age.
Yeah. Cherish those, nurture those. They're going to be really useful down the road. I was pretty terrible at making friends, at keeping, I actually left college early. I didn't stay the whole course. My head was turned by the idea of making money at a discotheque in central London.
Wow.
And I forgot all about going to college, and then I became an actor. So I went to college again eventually. Yeah. One or two friends that I made there are just delightful. That history is really important. So keep hold of those guys. Make sure you don't.
There's some good people.
How are you coping with this pandemic?
It's sort of been coming and going. I'm very fortunate. I was able to come back to live with my parents. I hate to be the 23-year-old living in my parents' basement, but at the same time, I get to live in my parents' basement while this whole thing goes on, which means that I have my family, which is lovely.
Yeah.
I have access to all the resources I need. I don't have to worry about things like money or access to resources, which I'm definitely counting my blessings, and I'm very grateful. And the fact that I've been focusing mostly on schoolwork for most of it, it has meant that I've largely been able to deal with it fine. I'm also pretty introverted. I don't go out much normally, so it hasn't changed my routine.
But you're 23, man. You just left college. You're just leaving college. You're supposed to be partying every night.
My social life tends to be mostly online. I have a lot of long distance friends.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of my time chatting with them via things like Discord or Zoom. Like I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons 4 nights a week.
That's great. How does that work on Zoom?
We use a platform called Discord, actually. And then we have a website that's called Roll20. It allows all of us so that we have maps and movable tokens that we can use. Fantastic. And we can have all of our character sheets on the website so that we can play digitally instead of in person.
I bet you people are writing this stuff down right now.
It's very convenient, especially because like the people in our group are from really all over the place. People from like Britain, we have someone from Austria, we have one guy from Australia, and then people all over the US as well.
So that's your main game.
Yeah, since I can't go out and play board games with people or invite them over to my house to play, playing D&D online has been my primary pastime.
You play Magic the Gathering?
No, I tried to get into it. I found that with Magic especially, I just couldn't really get into it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it also depends how you're playing, and it needs another person. You can't just play. It got my Dungeons and Dragons nerd, and it dragged it through the thing because it's absolutely a kind of really high-end Dungeons and Dragons game.
They're owned by the same company now, so there's like setting overlap even. There are D&D
like the Wizards of the Coast
set. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dungeons and Dragons, actually they're about to come out with a new campaign book that's set in one of the planes from Magic the Gathering. I think Theros is the setting for it.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so magic is not your thing, but
it's not my thing, but I definitely can appreciate it. The art is incredible.
It's beautiful. Thank you for turning up and making this part of this group as pleasant as it is.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
We have gender neutral names. I'm Ariel. She's Terry.
Great.
Actually, I'm a physician. Terry's taking care of things at home, especially during the pandemic.
And I'm gonna obviously, Ariel. I'll definitely ask. But I'm
sure
how it is for you.
For the most part, it's okay. I mean, everyone has their days, as I do, that where it's just, you just want to run outside and you don't care, but then you have to step back and think, I can't do that. But for me, I'm a little more cautious about it because my mother is in her 70s and is in stage 3 of COPD.
Okay.
Unfortunately, she was in a different state, but so for me, it's like when I see people out without masks and stuff, I really get angry. It really aggravates me because it's like.
And what state are you in?
We're in Maryland.
I take it you are working most of the day.
I work on an inpatient adolescent unit close by. We're on a staggered schedule right now, so there's 2 attending. There's me and the other one. I go in the morning. We do our morning meeting. I round on the patients, and I try to do everything I need to do in hospital. And once I do all my in-person work, I can come home and do my notes remotely and sit here in front of this computer and be distracted by other things as well as trying to type my notes.
Yes.
And they can call me, because I don't get distracted at all.
Never.
Yeah. What an astonishing coincidence, given that I've just talked to Yori, who is just embarking on a career which you've already embarked on.
We both met you back in, again, 2002. You had come from London. You were there for this benefit that Andy Robinson had, that a friend of ours invited us to. I think it was in Pasadena. And you and I sat down sometime, and I was like, oh my God, you're my favorite TV doctor at the time. Then you said, what do you do? I'm a physician. Oh my God, you're a real doctor. No, but you're a doctor on TV. You're on my favorite Star Trek. And actually said, you will have the honor of being the first person to sign an autograph for my wall of doctors. Actually, I have it right here.
Oh my goodness, there you are. It's fantastic. I feel slightly ashamed that I don't remember as very well.
That's okay.
It's 15 years ago, I guess. That's You were both together then too, weren't you?
Yes. Terry actually has the same picture with there you go.
Oh, my old name. Well, you've got a niche. Doctors is a niche. It's a pretty interesting one. I mean, you can go pretty much into any kind of you can even doesn't even have to be actors. It can be genuine doctors you idolize. You think that is a wonderful doctor.
That's a good one too.
I like that.
I just might, and actually I was going to stick to television, but that's not a bad idea either.
I like it.
It's not a bad idea. What have you got to tell us about where to get good information?
I mean, for specific medical information, go to the CDC, check your local health department, your county health department, your state level health department. Go to the county, if not the state, for the most reliable information, because you also get very local information.
Yeah, cool.
Especially, for example, in Maryland, the governor has started a phase 1 of reopening various establishments, but he's leaving it to the counties. The more rural counties aren't as much, as far as I know. Again, and that's all the more reason to go local.
Great advice. I haven't even thought of looking at the local CDC, but you can verify that, every couple of weeks, someone's calling up, putting the flag on the plate at the CDC saying they're not pulling their weight. They're not doing enough work. They've really dropped the ball. Their information is still terrific.
We're not very far from Johns Hopkins University. They have a renowned data and graph. Yeah,
they're collecting all the data that everybody gets.
Right. And as far as news, personally, Washington Post much of the time. I'm trying to get my German polished up again. So I listen to this Deutsche Welle news podcast.
Right. You don't look at push notification news.
Oh, no, I keep those off.
What is your favorite thing to cook during this COVID time?
I cook a good peanut butter on sourdough. Terry does the bulk of the cooking.
What do you cook, Terry?
Well, I just tried a new recipe last night. In fact, a pulled pork recipe that came out really well. But I'm more of a baker than.
Okay. So and you're bereft of good flour right now and yeast and.
Yeah. But I did more of my hobby is doing custom cakes.
Oh.
For family and friends.
Wonderful.
So.
And who do you do custom cakes for?
I do it for friends' birthdays or special occasions. There's a picture here from years ago. This is an older one. I don't know if you can see. There's the camera.
There you go.
Oh yeah, no, that's fantastic. You kidding?
That's
Yes,
from the 25th Next Generation anniversary. So
wow,
we're just together with a bunch of.
It's on material. It looks really beautiful.
Thank you. When we have anything to celebrate, somebody gets a new job or anything like that, I'll usually end up designing and making a cake for them just for the fun of it, just enjoying it. The best part is to see people's faces because I never tell them I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I just kind of surprise them with it. So
good. That's the way to do it. Is it just you two in the house?
Yep, just us.
Just us.
And how is that? That must be pretty cool you obviously still working a lot of the time, so your regime hasn't changed an awful lot.
It has been disruptive and it is more unstructured. Our gyms are closed, so the workout, Terry's been much better at the workout than I have.
Yeah.
Got myself busy on my off weeks with this little project, if you will, making my excuse of buying computer gear to make a little home office.
It's fantastic. But, it's working.
Yeah, I'm working every other week and I do some minor charting or calls and such from home. We haven't had much in the way of patients. There is free time, and I forget who it was who said he has this list of things he still wants to do, and I have one of those lists too. As far as that's concerned, I'm trying to get through Gotham.
Oh, well, there you go.
When I realized you played Ra's al Ghul,
I did. I
got to do this.
I'm going to selfishly ask you, Ariel, sorry, both of you actually, because you both might answer this. I gave Yori some advice about, because he said he's not going to be able to get a job. Was that good advice? It was just off the top of my head. Could you give better advice from an actual professional?
Actually, that wasn't bad at all. Make connections as best you can. I know it's hard right now with people being inside. Start with the friends, with professors. Going from there, Jory sounds like he's at the early stages, so it might be too soon.
He's just
for a job.
Undergrad. Yeah, he's just finished the undergrad. So
right.
Yeah.
So the next step, if he wants to be a therapist, grad school, again, try to establish some of those connections. Shadowing is not a bad idea. If it's quote unquote normal circumstances, those would be perfect. Or working in a hospital. I would say that's kind of iffy unless you really want to take that risk.
Yeah,
I have to be there.
Yeah.
Connections with people you're familiar with is okay, but also connect to people you haven't talked to in a while. They may be uncomfortable at first, but it's a new perspective on something. Whereas your friends and your close family are all going to have, pretty much what they're going to say, who they know, and that kind of stuff. But if you go back, like somebody you haven't talked to in a year or a few years, and connect with them, and just see this. I read this article, and I thought about I haven't talked to so and so in a while, and I wanted to reconnect.
That is a really, really good point.
Yeah, it was a great article.
Yeah, that's a good reason to do it too, because this thing is a great reason to reach out.
Yeah, and it's a perfect opportunity. I mean, I hate to say something good coming out of all this, but it's a perfect opportunity to reconnect with people you haven't talked to in a while.
Agreed.
You never know who's going to have a connection to somebody else, and networking and
absolutely
it helps his career. So you never know.
Absolutely.
I am very lucky in that respect. I don't have to worry about that.
Okay, good.
We're okay in that respect.
Yeah. It's been a real pleasure catching up with you guys, and I will not forget.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sid.
18 years. Lovely meeting you. And cheerio, guys.
Thanks, Mel.
Hi, Sid.
Hi. Okay, well, it's lovely seeing you properly then. How are you?
It's lovely seeing you properly. So, and I have one question for you.
You can ask away.
A good friend of mine worked on Gotham, and you guys had a really good conversation according to him, and I wouldn't even ask if you would remember him, except that he's a really weird looking guy. So he has long purple braids and like a weird braided beard that like curls up, and his name's JD.
Yes, I do remember him, and he was kind enough to mention that he knew me from TV already, and he was on the crew, and I can't remember what department, but it was
He's a lighting guy. He's a lighting guy.
I was going to say it's a utility department, so great.
So that's my dear friend. So he calls me, and I'm like, who's calling me? Because who calls anybody anymore for anything? And he leaves me a message. He's like, I talked to your friend Sid. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do?
He came up and talked to me, and I remember it clearly.
He's a really good friend of mine. So he was like, I had a lovely conversation with your friend Sid. We talked about video games.
That's great. Will you give him my best?
I will. I just wanted to know if you remembered him. So I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay, that's where we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Whereabouts?
So I'm not so far from Brooklyn Heights. I'm in Borum Hill, which is a neighborhood nobody's ever heard of, but it's between like Park Slope and Fort Greene.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And then my little one bedroom by myself, which is kind of.
Who can afford anything else? I mean, that place is skyrocket expensive.
So I've lived in my apartment for 11 years, and my landlords are like an old school Greek family. Like my original landlord died, and now his kids have the place, and so they've been really nice about not raising the rent a lot.
Oh, that's great.
I've been a really nice tenant.
How is he?
I think he's good. He's in the West Village doing his thing.
Because he's flat out of work.
I think so, but I'm actually not out of work. But
do you paint?
I am a painter.
I was.
It's
beautiful back there.
My day job is that I'm a lawyer.
Oh, wow. What a combination.
So these are my paintings, the two on the bottom and the one on the top, and that's my other art collection. But I'm a nonprofit attorney, so I advise nonprofit businesses that are trying to do good in the world.
Good for you.
When I go outside where I am, everybody has a mask on. Maybe some guy has it like pulled down and he's having a cigarette, but like people are doing it in all the stores. My corner store, my bodega says, no mask, no in. I protect you, you protect me.
I was sitting in the waiting room in the emergency department. Everybody was incredibly nervous of everybody else in there because, of course, there's COVID everywhere. Everyone was doing pretty well, but there was a very elderly lady who came sort of quite purposefully up to the counter, and there was like a sofa in front of the counter to stop people get too close, and she just pushed it aside and pulled down her face mask and said, "Right, I've got to do this and I've got to do that." And they, ma'am, can you put your face mask up? And she's like, "Oh yeah, sure, sorry." And then she pulled it down again to talk. Every time
you can talk through it.
You couldn't fathom that out. That was not in her can.
My grandmother is like 97. She's in an assisted living facility in Pennsylvania, but it's a very fancy one. So she has her own apartment and whatever. And this is the first time I've ever heard my grandmother, who's like a very feisty Jewish grandmother, you know, Roselle Smith will be like, she's getting through. She's making it through. So I've been calling her a lot. I'm usually the black sheep of the family because I like moved across the country to New York, and you know, but I'm close to grandma, so I can call.
Yeah,
her.
good. That's really good. But it looks like you have a really interesting technique on the canvases there.
This one,
I
kind of throw paint on canvas, like a mad person, but then I put tape line, so then it creates craziness, but in a triangular box. So that one kind of looks like mountainscape.
It does. It's really beautiful. It's really
thank
beautiful.
you.
Yeah, really lovely colors.
Yeah, I'm very into purple. So I had a health scare about 5 years ago, and I was like, should be a painter. Why am I not being a painter? So I decided to do it.
Do you feel compelled? Is there this? I mean, because my wife every other day there's this like compulsion to leave law.
I would love to leave law. I would like.
What is that?
Lawyers are miserable people. People are like, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like people come to you and they're like, "I'm worried. I'm so worried about a thing." I'm like, "Don't even worry about it. I'll worry about it for you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, I have to worry about it for you." I'm still paying my student loans off 10 years out.
Where would you go for the truth? Where do you look for the truth?
Where do I look for the truth? So I feel like I have smart friends. So I look at Facebook and whatnot. I look at the Atlantic until I run out of free articles. I look at the Guardian.
Guardian's terrific. It's quite left-leaning, but it is terrific.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super left-leaning. I like my Rachel Maddow. Yeah, I mean, I can tell I have my bias. So I look to the truth.
Yeah.
People who are talking my language.
Of course. Because normally I would say Facebook was the last place you should get news. But if you've got a great circle of friends who are doing a lot of good reading, then you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I can parse
of course
what I'm getting from that.
You're a lawyer.
I literally went to school for that. That degree I'm still paying for, hopefully, is worth something. I mean, so I go to the New York Times.
Well, I recommend, as a couple of people have mentioned, I think right at the beginning, Rob, the BBC website is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's good because it's not just about COVID and it's not just about Trump.
Yeah, and if I was willing to sort of challenge my brain, like I speak French, so I should be looking at Le Monde. But
absolutely. Well, I think I've had a lovely, lovely conversation with you.
I will say hello to JD from you.
Please do. Please do. And look after yourself and make a lot more art. And hopefully I'll see another painting on that wall sometime.
Yes.
Anne, hello.
Trying not to fangirl here. I'm be quite honest about it. This is like...
You're so welcome. Totally cool. It's totally cool. You're among friends.
About as close as I think in this world as I'll get to meeting a higher power.
That is so not true.
I got into Deep Space Nine more as an adult through Netflix. The character of Dr. Bashir, as he develops throughout the entire show, the personal growth that he was able to show as an adult helped me to lead some of my own choices towards personal growth. So that was an awesome experience for me to watch the show and see the character, especially the whole Garrick dynamics out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that the show was able to help that. That's when TV can be kind of useful. It's designed to make uncomfortable people comfortable and comfortable people uncomfortable. Where are you? Whereabouts are you?
Oh, I'm Western Mass as well.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're down the road. Yeah. So how are you doing?
I would say overall, yeah. I see plenty of people, around that aren't wearing masks and stuff like that. Like the only time I don't wear masks, like I'm a smoker and I have to smoke outside.
Sure.
When I step outside, I'm just walking out to curbside there. I'm not going to wear a mask where there's no foot traffic.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of hard to smoke a cigarette through a mask anyways.
Absolutely.
But, I take my son out. I have an 8-year-old son. We go outside just right next to the house. We have an apartment here, and we play kickball. I'll watch him as he goes around on his scooter and stuff like that. We don't wear masks for that. If we go for a walk anywhere, the mask goes on.
Right. How is Daniel Jr. doing?
Overall, I think he's done pretty well. He has 3 meetings a week with his teacher on Zoom.
Yeah.
And Google Classroom or something like that. I don't know. I think it's through Google Classroom because he's using a Chromebook that he borrowed from the school. So
okay.
Between all the schoolwork that he has, second grade, and he does about an hour and a half of online learning programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has a paper packet that he does as well. That's more of a personal preference. We have him do that to help retain the information that he does through the online learning tools. Yes. So he does the paper packets to reinforce it.
Of course. Because they say that the summer slide is usually kind of a phenomenon among teachers and schools, that kids forget a lot of stuff during summer. And this particular adjunct to that summer vacation is doubling the summer slide. They've got a lot more catch up. Do you do lots of home education as well? Not putting pressure on you, just wondering if you do.
Overall, I teach him what I know.
Yeah,
I know computer, and I know cooking. So outside of what he does for schoolwork, I've always tried to, I build desktops and stuff like that. So when I'm putting a build together, I have it right there. Hand me this part. This is what this part does. And
that is fantastic for him. And I'm guessing he doesn't really miss the social aspect too much yet, or he's not going crazy about that.
We have a couple of kids that he's kind of grown up with a little bit around here. My wife and I were familiar with their parents.
So you can
know what their home life is basically like, so we trust that him playing with those kids isn't going to be an issue. We're constantly monitoring him. Hand sanitizer. He comes inside from playing and he gets wiped down from head to toe.
Absolutely.
We don't take any risks like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably really healthy for him. I don't know, but that seems like if my kid was 8 and I had some close friends nearby, go and make sure he said hi. Would be
he does know. That age. At that age, they're huggers. They like to be right up there. It's more of, all right, you can kick a ball around. You can ride your scooter while they ride their bikes, or you can ride your bike.
There's plenty of stuff you can do and keep separate. You can play badminton. You're kind of a long way away from each other. How about you and your wife? How is this experience impacting you guys?
The fact that neither one of us has buried the other person, I think, is in and of itself miraculous. I find it comical in a way when some people say that, well, now you're not only parents, but you're teachers as well. True parents are already teachers.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that those who are struggling with it aren't. I'm not saying anything negative about those who are having problems with it, because I'll be the first one to admit it is not easy by any means, but it's doable. And it's teaching us how to handle routines better. I think that's been the biggest lesson that we've learned from this whole experience, is how to better organize and maintain a routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, kids apparently really prosper under structure, under certain structural routines. They have no problem with that at all. And there are a couple of child adolescent psychologists online right now, so I better be pretty accurate with what I'm saying. But certainly with respect to my own child and my stepson, they really did well when there was structure. And as soon as it got all a bit frayed, and we had got divorced and kind of other problems started happening, it started to get problematic, and we had to remember when that was happening that the routine for the kids was not going to change, that their structure would remain, and that there would be no, these were the building blocks of the divorce, if you like. It sounds really healthy. Sounds like everything's going really quite well for you, and I'm really glad.
It has since I started joining these meetings. These Zoom meetings, hearing you chat to different people, last Friday seeing our grades, and having his input, this has become like a therapy for me throughout the week. It's been a very good just distraction from everything.
I'm glad to hear it, especially from a non-therapist. I am absolutely not qualified anything, but you know what? The people I talk to are therapeutic. They are interesting. They have got really interesting, crazy lives happen, and everybody's juggling with this, and that's what I admire about everybody so much, including yourself. I mean, it's just wonderful to see people making do. This is 8 weeks into this, and we are still hanging in there. There must be people like me I earned money before I stopped earning money. Not enough to see me through another year of this. So, there's no prospect of me earning for the next 6 months or 5 months at least.
A couple of things I did want to mention to you. The timing could not have been more interesting as far as having live Zoom meetings with the one who portrayed Dr. Bashir. Given the COVID-19 state of the planet Earth, it reminded me of the episode where you were dropped off as Dr. Bashir, dropped off on the planet and cured the plague in the infant. The world needs a Dr. Bashir right now.
Well, I hope so.
The other thing I wanted to mention was the first live Zoom that I attended was last Tuesday.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, that was just the other day.
One of the first people you spoke with was a nurse, and hearing you give props and thanks to those who do like the janitorial work and stuff like that and the housekeeping, that meant a lot to me because my mom does housekeeping in a nursing aid facility. They don't get the appreciation as much as the nurses do. So hearing you say that meant a lot to me.
I've been thinking about it since day one. You know, all the people we come in contact with, the gas station attendants, the checkout people at the grocery store, the big Y, those guys, my goodness, they don't get the PPE that everybody else gets, and they just see tons and tons of traffic.
They may be wiping down the handles of those carriages, but I'd hate to be the one going out there and grabbing the carriages from the parking lot.
You're not kidding.
It's been awesome chatting with you.
Thank you, Alexis. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Are you traumatized?
Let's just say my 16-year-old self, if I could go back and say, girl, just give it a few years. So no, this is great. Well, thank you for hosting this. Yeah, my mom started me on Star Trek when I was little, the original series, and just kind of working my way up. And I loved DS9. I loved your character. It's amazing how Trek has just lasted so many decades.
I'm going to throw you a curveball. What is your happiest memory from your teenage years?
Senior prom.
Oh, really?
The theme was Flintstones. We had a dress made that was leopard skin print. And it was a cute little dress, and I went and got my hair done, and my boyfriend and we went for a picnic that day. I felt pretty and got to go and dance.
So talk me through it, because I grew up in the UK. We don't have the tradition of proms. Tell the people here not from the States, what's the order of events?
Some places they'll have like a big promenade, almost like a red carpet walk.
What is your one? What did your school do?
Mine was, it was pretty simple. It was at our county fairgrounds Coliseum. It was, everything was, Flintstones related. I had kids dressed up like in, little Flintstones costumes.
I remember the little things.
Pebbles and Bam Bam is really cute. So, we had a picture taking section on one side, the music, the stage.
And did your boyfriend come and pick you up at home and take you?
He did. We went out earlier that day. He dropped me off so I could go get my hair done. He'd go home, get his tux on. He and his parents came to my house to pick me up. So we had pictures, and he's like 6 foot tall. I'm 5'2", so I have to stand on a step just to be somewhat near him.
Did you wear a corsage? I never understood what that was about.
It's just a little something to, I don't know. It was cute. I had mine.
What does the corsage signify?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right, that's fair enough.
Not one idea.
You arrive at the hall, band is playing, you walk in and everybody knows everybody, so you rush off and say hi to your friends, and he rushes off and says hi to his friends, and then do you organize to come back at a certain point and dance, or does he formally have to come up to you and say, ma'am, may I have the pleasure of this next dance?
No, not really that formal. We go see friends apart together. This was the 90s, so there was a mosh pit, and he was like, I'm gonna go mosh, and I'm like, do you? I'm not. Afterward, hanging out and got our picture taken together and went home and hung outside. come, and it was just a really great day.
Are you living as far south as your accent suggests?
No, I was born in Kentucky. I moved to Ohio in '89. Ohio has spent 3 decades trying to knock this accent out of me, and it's just not happened yet. So.
Yeah, I haven't picked up the American accent. How are you doing in Ohio?
Okay,
Because things just start cooking over there, aren't they?
Yeah, Governor DeWine just lifted the stay-at-home order. Things will be opening back up soon.
I think everybody's thinking the same, That's the problem. Everyone's we're going to dutifully lift all the orders, and people are going to go, great. What's your passion?
But I'm going back to school for graphic design.
Wow.
Decided at 41 last year, I said, I want something different.
What a great idea.
And I love it so much. I've always lived a creative life. I have an English degree. I pretty much had to create my own careers out of it. And mostly it's been admin work. And it was time for something different. I'm able to use my creativity that way.
Great.
So I'll be done in December, should everything work out.
It hasn't stopped because of COVID. They can still keep going because graphics is ideally suited to this box we have in front of us.
It really is. And fortunately, the school I go to, most of the teachers are really familiar with online format of teaching.
Yeah. So you're learning about fonts, you're learning about settings, you're learning about sans serif.
I will actually be learning that this summer in my typography class, yes. Yeah. So looking forward to that.
Adobe Illustrator?
Illustrator, that's the one where you can create lines and illustrations. InDesign, where you can create your printed materials. Photoshop. This is only a 2-year program that I'm in.
Oh, 2 years.
But you still get a good overview of things.
You're not kidding. It's a perfectly good amount of time.
I hope so. There is definitely competition out there, but I've been trying to do freelance work. I've been making logos for people, and I joined a professional organization here in Columbus to meet people and to just try to do the right things to open those doors.
Are you living with family?
My husband and I. He's hanging out in the office, yeah.
Absolutely. Quite interesting how the house becomes so much more important than it did when we were working. The house becomes a home, and that's really great. And if people, and that seems to generate a home out of this thing I rent is pretty terrific. I think it's pretty terrific what's going on in terms of people embracing family life and taking it seriously and trying to enjoy it.
I have adjusted well to it. You have that FOMO, that fear of missing out. Oh, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on. And then things shut down.
Yeah.
They cut my work hours, and I was able to sit, and I was able to just ground myself into my home, pet my dog, sit out in the backyard, look at the dandelions growing, talk, have conversations with my husband.
Yeah.
Things calmed down quite a bit for me.
Yeah. Is he furloughed, or does he still work?
He works from home, although he's been going into the office a little bit more. But yeah, we were both fortunate in that neither of us lost income. If you're fortunate enough, then you got to pay it forward somehow.
Absolutely. So. Do you do the cooking?
We both cook. My husband the other day just made sweet potato pies. I'm nursing sourdough starter myself. So
I have certain news for anybody who heard my sourdough starter story is that I let my sourdough starter die this morning. There must have been a line I crossed where it just died. So how's your sourdough starter coming?
I have some starter in the fridge that's asleep. I'm waking some up, although I didn't know that when you first start waking it up, you let it go 12 hours, then you take half of it, do it again. So I didn't do that for a couple of days. So tonight I made crumpets. Yeah, right. Sourdough crumpets. And all in all, getting through it. I've been painting, I've been writing, those that can create have just been trying to use this time to focus that energy. Have you picked up anything new during this time?
I was going to pick up sewing. I have the sewing machine downstairs. I haven't started, but I will. Probably the newest thing I've done is pick up this computer and ask Mel, help me do a Zoom chat to 100 people every couple of times a week. This is kind of good for me. This is good exercise for me.
I'm glad you are doing this. Yeah, we all appreciate
what
you and Mel put into this.
It's a 2-way street. Well, it's a 50-way street.
During your career, was there ever a time where a producer or writer wanted your character to do something and you're just like, No. And if so, how did you handle that?
It was often on Star Trek where I thought, this is just not what Bashir would say. But they were the best scenes because I found a way to do them. They were the ones that I was kind of most happy about afterwards. It's that party that you don't want to go to that you really enjoy when you get there. Those things should be embraced.
I love hearing about that. I love learning to understand about that. So that's wonderful.
One of the things I appreciate most about your career is I had not seen anybody brown really in Star Trek, like as a main occurring character. So it's kind of like, great, okay, cool. So we are in the future. That's good to know.
Yeah, you do exist in the future. And African Americans too.
Love everything you've done. Like, I was super excited when they finally cast you as Ra's al Ghul.
You look like you're in a recording studio.
So when quarantine started, I was like, okay, I know I'm going to be doing a lot more streaming content. So for work, I travel around the world giving talks and doing workshops and things like that for electronics and software. And so like a good portion of my team's work is travel. So we're going to be doing video moving forward. So I'm like,
going anywhere.
So it's like I took it as an excuse I needed a project that also could feed retail therapy, get all the streaming stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. There's all this things I didn't know about that people use when they are sitting at a desktop, like all this stuff for mics. So I've got
fades and buffers and
so like I got a big monitor thing, a bunch of cameras.
And do you Vube or whatever they call it? The little Deep Space Nine, it's perfect. Do you stream on YouTube and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I've been doing streams on YouTube and Facebook. When quarantine hit, there was a lot of different things I wanted to help with. There are definitely groups that are working on getting open source medical supplies out there. Yeah. I'll help with that where I can, but people's mental health are going to deteriorate. I've struggled with depression and anxiety my whole life, so I've experienced periods of time not going outside. And so this is mostly a walk in the park, but for others, it's just new. America's learning what it's like to feel.
To be
so
that, absolutely.
Okay, we'll make a Facebook group called Quarantine Streams and just be like, hey, what are you doing? Just remind everybody that everyone's alive, that people are still living and people are still having lives, even if we can't all be together.
Yeah, and how does it work? What sort of thing happened?
It worked out pretty well. It has come drawn down in terms of activity in there. Through it, a number of other regular streams have started. Peter Hirschberg, founder of the Gray Area in the Bay Area, he reached out to me and I helped him get Quarantine.today going. So he started this talk show where amazing the guests he's gotten on there.
I think I've read about him. Yes, absolutely.
He knows everybody. And then another friend of ours, Marshall Shore, he uses I set him up to stream on there. He does the LGBTQ Arizona history happy hour. So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. And
okay.
Yeah, and so he's a friend who does amazing we call him, he's known as the hip historian, crazy fashion, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. And so he does the Arizona gay history happy hour. And then I've been hosting chats kind of like these. Quarantine.studio, which goes with the streaming channel. And that's why I really appreciate everything going on with this.
What's really cool about this? And I kind of glanced on it a few seconds ago, apart from the fact that this is sort of kind of cool little area that people can come and hang out in. But what we're doing, our talk, is one thing. In fact, it's possibly the most boring thing. What's happening down there on that chat stream is crazy. That's all. I mean, I couldn't possibly keep up with it.
Oh yeah, it's like emergent communities. There's the face-to-face community, and then it's exciting to see people you've been chatting with. I first started coming to these last Tuesday. Feels like a year ago. Sally was on Garrick costume.
Yes, I remember.
And so found out that they live 2 hours over. We had crossed paths before, both Arizonans. And so we connected on Facebook. And it's amazing. Just 6 degrees of nerddom, I guess.
This is sort of not in your comfort zone, but not being out and certainly not doing some retail therapy and hanging back, projecting different versions of you, forcing you to rediscover new things that you hadn't thought about is probably really good for you.
Oh yeah, obviously the things that a lot of people are going through, and I am fortunate that I have a job that I can do remote. I don't have all the other stresses that surround quarantine.
And also, it seems like you can share that. You're sharing that, which is terrific.
Early on, I was in a chat with a couple of hackers from around the world. It was a mental health hackers.
As you do.
Person in that chat, and we'd all been talking to them, and they mentioned that this has kind of been great for them because all these conferences are going virtual. They're finally actually able to participate in these conferences because they then dropped this bomb like halfway through the chat that they hadn't left their home in 2 years, and then revealed that they're disabled and they can't walk. And that's like spark a tone from like, wow, you're right. Like, because I always think about whenever I go out, I was a very outgoing party person before all this. I didn't feel like I connected in with them. I'm like, where are all the nerds? Where are the people in my community? And I realized they're always all at home. They don't go out. And so now, since I'm staying home more, I'm connecting with them. I'm connecting with all these Trekkies, and it's filling me with joy. I'm feeling more fulfilled.
I tell you a story, a little anecdote. When I was in my 20s, I was huge gamer. There probably wasn't a game that I hadn't played. I mean, just anything that came out, I played it. I settled on one game. There was a game called Ultimate Online. It was overhead scrolling, and people ran around and just hit each other with swords. A group of people that I hung with a couple of other, I assume they were kids too, you know. And we had a rule: we just never talked about our real lives. We just talked about in-game stuff, because there was plenty to discuss. Lots of tactics, how we're going to set out and take this big giant down or whatnot. And eventually, after about 4 or 5 years, we knew each other so well that we let slip little personal details. But it turned out the guy who was our tank, and I know you know about tanks and you know, the gaming setup, the archetypes, the guy who was our tough guy, the guy at the front who always took a beating, he hadn't been out of his house in something like 3.5 years. He's in a wheelchair. This is his projection of himself. And there's something so nourishing about that story to me. I was just like, always treated you like the tank. You know, if there's trouble, I'm pushing you in front of me, which is completely the opposite to what I would think of in real life. But it taught me to start thinking, no, I'm going to start pushing you in front of me in real life too. I'm going to start, you know, you're going to be in front of us. It was just really nourishing. I just felt nourished by that. But you just reminded me of that by talking about your mental hacker friend.
There's always like media that will kind of rag on the nerds and be like, oh, they play games to feel powerful and like live this fantasy. But the way you told that story makes me really remember that for a lot of people, that is finally, even if it's a small period of time where they're feeling empowered virtually in a game.
Oh my goodness.
There's nothing to be shameful about. There's nothing to shame someone about that, because that's going to help them in their life. Like, you gain that confidence in something and then you bring it in your life. And
do you live alone or with people?
I live alone. So I have a studio apartment and it's just me and my machines.
That's really cool. And you don't miss, obviously, people, because you kind of made that clear. How do you shop for yourself and stuff like that? Do you have parents you get in touch with?
My parents call me and I occasionally call them. I tend to be bad about, and they live about half hour from me. I'm very connected with people. I will say I'm a very social person. Before, I had an abundance of socializing, like in person with different groups I work with, an excess, but no quality. And now it's like, it's pared down now, close friends with people that I met once or twice. And I talk to them more than I talk to anybody else. I will say it's very isolating though. I try to walk outside every now and then, at least to go get my mail.
How are your parents dealing with this?
So my dad is a physician. So he has his own practice in Casa Grande. So he goes in a couple times a week. He's been kind of limiting it. He's been dealing with it well. I think he's happy that he actually spends more time at home.
Yeah.
Because he has a bunch of doctors that work with him and report.
And for reasons I understand, I'm rediscovering the house is such a wonderful thing. Yeah.
And my mother runs his practice on the business side of things.
Okay.
And she keeps going in on Tuesdays, and I told her, you can do your job from home. You don't have to go be around patients.
What's your happiest memory of your time when you were a kid?
When I was in Pakistan, and there was this pool. It looked like something out of like Legend of Zelda, like a sci-fi pool. And our family, we all went in there. I had an uncle that had a face that was scary to me when I was young. So I was like freaking out because he was trying to be like, no, you'll be fine in the water. And I'm like, your face scares me. And I didn't want to say that. So I like panicked and ran. And then I'm like stumbling around in these woods and I find a fossil and I got so excited and I just found it like in the mud. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, I found an actual wild fossil. You know, I was obsessed with Jurassic Park at the time.
Perfect.
And like wanted to be an archaeologist. It was just like one of those moments where all I needed to do to be the thing I wanted to be was you literally go out and dig. Be happier.
Off life in Pakistan, or did you start off life in America and go to Pakistan for a vacation?
I was born in Karachi, 91. About 92, we moved to Chicago when I was about 4 or 5.
Wow. Okay.
Phoenix.
So yeah.
I wanted to ask, what is your like go-to spice set? I have like the same several set of spices that I will force into any recipe I can. Even if I'm making Italian food, it's curry spices all day long.
Boom. I'll tell you what I like to have. My most important herb is thyme. Always got it in the fridge. Anything I make with any kind of sauce or meat or gravy, it's got thyme to infuse it. Some people like rosemary. I like thyme. oregano or anything like that. That's just got my background flavors, which I'm loving. There's a secret thing that you can find. I've only found it in America, and it's powdered sriracha. You see it in the spice rack in regular grocery stores. And it's basically sriracha chili, but powdered. So you're just getting rid of the chili bit and you're just adding a bit of a sriracha edge to something. I really like that. I'm quite into that at the moment. I have cumin fresh. I get that from Morocco because I travel to Morocco. I have paprika from Morocco. They are heads and shoulders above any paprika or cumin I can find in the States. But I love those spices. Cumin is really, really useful.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty much 90% of what I use is cumin.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, if you ever go to North Africa, be sure and take a sack so you can bring. If I'm making a tagine or something like that, I'll use some turmeric. But salt and pepper, pretty much they're my go. I haven't got any like kind of garam masala mix that I'm coming up with that I think is like really great. Although I could happily whip one up, but the sriracha should be really good in it.
I mainly use degi mirch, so I guess red chili powder.
Yeah.
Cumin, turmeric. Occasionally I'll use like toasted cumin, like seeds.
Oh.
So cumin seeds are always great.
Absolutely. It's the best. Toast them and then grind them up.
Frankie Muniz, Malcolm in the Middle. He lives in my neighborhood, and he has a olive oil shop in Scottsdale called Outrageous Olive Oils. And I went there half thinking, oh, he won't actually be at his store. And he was there. I was like, okay, he won't actually want to talk to me. I started talking to him, and for like 15 minutes, we just talked about olive oil. And he sold me on butter-flavored olive oil in place of butter.
Yeah.
And so now I just use olive oil, butter.
Yeah, I had some really good olive oil from around here too. We ran out of it, sadly, and we can't get any more now. I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been talking to you, and I hope we talk again.
Likewise, this has been great.
There's a lot more going on. I'm really happy to have just done a no bells, no thrills, just Zoom chat with everybody.
This has been fantastic. Thank you. And thank you, Mel.
Real pleasure, Mahib. Thank you.
Thank you.